Escoffier just dropped. She's amazing, as expected, but everyone's recommending teams with Furina. What teams do you run if you don't have Furina? Let's have a look. This Nouvellette team isn't his strongest, but Furina is his best teammate, and this video exists to demonstrate teams without Furina, so let Escoffier cook. As far as Furina-less Nouvellette teams go, this one's up there. Escoffier gives us the damage dealer we lose by dropping Furina, as well as a lot of heals. Seatlally gives 40% Hydro and Cryo damage for the team from 4-piece scroll, as well as shredding Hydro resistance by 20%. Kazuha shreds by a further 40%, which makes up the 40% you lose from Escoffier's passive, and he gives an elemental damage buff too. Losing the HP from the Hydro resonance isn't great, but you do get a better charge attack damage bonus from Nouvellette's passive for getting another element in there. Kazuha's grouping is useful too. Another Fontaine character getting a buff is Rifsley. Hoyo have slowly been letting him out of the Fortress of Meripede. First, he got 2 new teammates in Mawika and Seatlally, then he got a rerun, now he's got another teammate and with it, a new team archetype. He's best in melt teams, but with the introduction of Escoffier, Freeze is a strong option for him. It's less restrictive to him that you don't have to worry about elemental application. Yelan is a strong alternative to Furina here. Her passive gives Rifsley a damage buff. With him doing normal attacks, he's going to be triggering a lot of Yelan's attacks. If she's holding Favoni's Warbow, she's going to reduce the team's energy requirements even more too. If you've got Escoffier's signature weapon, Rifsley's going to appreciate the extra attack. He is still bound by the unwavering shackles of being French though. Sticking with cryo DPSs, we've got Ayaka flexing those wet grippers. In terms of damage dealing on paper, Ayaka's strongest team is going to be Escoffier, Furina and Shenhe, but we can swap out Furina for Yelan or Mona. She's a long forgotten character, but it's nice to see her getting some love. Her story quest and the music in that dancing scene are nostalgic for me. Honestly, I'd say Inazuma's launch was Genshin's peak in terms of hype and player interest. Escoffier gives us a nice throwback to that. I will say though that while this team performs well on paper, people might be overlooking Kazuha's value. Ayaka's burst is going to be dealing a lot of damage, but not if it's not hitting enemies. Kazuha helps a lot with that. Imagine you using this team for the second half of the Abyss. You work through your rotation, pop Ayaka's burst, and whatever it is you're fighting against moves out of it. If you reset the chamber, you have to play the first half again. If she does keep a burst on the enemy, it'll be strong, but bear in mind it might be awkward at times. There is the option to put Kazuha in there though in place of Shenhe. You'll lose 40% resistance shred from Escoffier's passive, but you'll get it back from VV. Kazuha's damage buff makes back some of what you lose from Shenhe, but you gain crowd control, which is more valuable in some situations. Given the fact Escoffier deals so much damage and she's sharing a banner with him, you could experiment and run a freeze team. Yelan is solid as always. Shenhe would be a good flex in this team to buff Escoffier's damage. Seatlally wouldn't be bad either with a Hydro damage buff and 4-piece scroll. Seatlally or Shenhe would give the team extra crit rates from a cryo resonance too. If you had any concerns about survivability in this team, having Escoffier there as a second healer along with the potential to freeze enemies makes this team near unkillable. I don't think this is Aether's best team, and ignoring his electro-charged buffs is a shame, but there's so much quality in this team it'll clear all content anyway. The only question would be, why run Aether over someone else? I guess the answer is as simple as you just want to play Aether, and that's perfectly fine in my opinion. I like him as a character. People say Escoffier can't work in melt teams because of her passive, but you know on this channel we're always going to try experimenting anyway. What she loses from her passive she gains back from melt and the ability to hold different weapons. Dragon's Bane gives elemental mastery for a melt damage as well as extra damage against opponents affected by pyro. The battle pass weapon, Ballad of the Fjords, gives elemental mastery and crit rate. I put Bennett in there, then went with Emily for another off-field damage dealer and recorded footage with Arlecchino, Mawika and Dia as the DPSs. Arlecchino was probably the strongest, but she had healing issues. Mawika and Dia both struggled getting their bursts. I like Dia's character though, so I used her footage here. Sticking with a burning team where Escoffier deals off-field melts, we have this. Kaniche, Mawika and Bennett is a solid trio, but people often struggle for the last slot. Emily is ideal, but not everyone pulled her. Furina works too, but she's often taken in other teams. Escoffier is a nice flex option. I tried Yansan in place of Bennett, but I found keeping a pyro aura on the enemy more awkward, so I just stuck to the original in the end. another broken support, and another unexpected Nilu buff. I did a video in 5.1 showing how Shallonen was the last piece Nilu needed to become a strong DPS. If you haven't seen it, punch yourself in the face. Swapping Kazuha and Shallonen out for Seatlally and Escoffier gives the team another damage dealer in Escoffier. She can also heal enough for Nilu to hold Harbinger of Dawn and still be above 90% most of the time. On top of that, it's another team archetype for Nilu. She's got Bloom, which we already know about, Hyper Carry with Kazuha and Shallonen, Freeze is a third. I get why you'd sleep on Nilu as a DPS back in 3.1, but not in 5.6. Half of the kit's literally tailor-made with self-infusion for it to be a DPS. I think Furina is better than Yelan here, but still, if you have Yelan, Seatlally and Escoffier, I beg you to give it a go. Little bit of a throwback here, but do you remember the early days of Dendro where people were using Kaya and Bloom teams? Escoffier is going to be an upgrade to Kaya there. She's going to deal more damage, her healing means you can go with another Hydro applicator, that in turn gives us the Hydro resonance to buff Yelan's damage, and then she's also shredding the opponent's Cryo and Hydro resistance by 15%. It still feels experimental, and I wouldn't go as far as to call it meta, but it did feel strong on the second half of the current Abyss. The Leyline Disorder is giving us 75% Cryo skill damage though, so it's best to judge it in a future Abyss. The reason I play Genshin in the first place is for my first main DPS, Child. Realistically, his only meta team is Child National, but there's so much individual quality in this team that it's going to beat all content in the game. His skill cooldown will always be annoying, but using Chongyun helps to reduce it. You can give him 4-piece Noblesse and Wolf's Gravestone if you have it to give the team a bunch of attack too. Did you know Aloy is my only Triple Crown unit? Well, now you know, I'm a big Horizon fan, so I had to show my girl love. Does Escoffier make Aloy great again? Aloy was never great in the first place, at least not in Genshin. She can be used with her though. I've gone with a quick swap team purely because I can't be asked with Aloy's normal attack infusion. We'll just spam it when it's there. I think one thing that kind of gets a little boring with Genshin is when you spend the first part of a rotation setting up, only to switch into your DPS and just spam normals. There's still nuance in how you play some characters, but that's loosely the same approach for most units. After playing other games like Wuthering Waves, it's fun to explore quick swap playstyles, and I think Chongyun is one of our best enablers of that. Aloy has potential to play in the same team playstyle too, given the fact she's a quick swap DPS. Shenhe's press skill shortens a rotation. Escoffier is the last piece of a jigsaw. This last team is one that I had a lot of fun with. When Seatlally released, I tried her in Arlecchino melt teams, given the fact Arlecchino can't heal and prefers a shielder. I added Rosaria and Kaya to the mix because I feel Seatlally's application alone isn't enough. Swapping Kaya out for Escoffier is a nice upgrade. There's still enough Cryo Shred for it to be useful, her damage was more than Kaya's anyway, and if you have a signature, the attack will be useful for Arlecchino. I've not tried this team with Bennett, but if you want to swap the crit rate that Rosaria brings to the team for his attack, I imagine the Cryo application will still be enough for Arlecchino to melt her hits, but I can't confirm it. I already released an Escoffier showcase for more teams with Furina, as well as an Ether guide in case you managed to snipe a copy of him. If you're interested in those, subscribe to the channel and take it easy.